Hi there, and welcome. This is Vince, and I'm an admissions advisor, counselor, and coach, talking today about 5 ways to fail the Wharton team-based discussion. The first way to fail this new Wharton team-based discussion is by showing poor logic. If your answer seems unclear, it means that you probably are underprepared or overconfident. I'm doing lots of Wharton interview training, and one thing I'm noticing in my initial sessions with my clients, both my comprehensive clients who I helped with essays and strategy, and my interview-only clients who are just contacting me when they get invited to Wharton interviews, a lot of them are, I think, underestimating the importance of this team-based discussion. Because Wharton also has the one-on-one discussion, they're assuming that they're focusing on the area that's more known, or that they assume there's more data for, which is a typical one-on-one interview. But I don't think this is a typical one-on-one interview. 45 minutes of the 1 hour experience is the team-based discussion. And so I think we could reasonably assume that it's 3/4 of the importance of the experience is what happens in that team-based discussion. That's my assumption. So you've got to show clear preparation, and before you walk into the Wharton interview, look, I don't think you should spend 15 hours preparing for the Wharton TBD, the team-based discussion, but I think you should spend at least an hour, as they suggest, or perhaps 2, having an answer that you feel confident about, that you can deliver effectively. I'm going to talk much more about that in a minute. So if you haven't prepared, or if you haven't shared your ideas with anybody, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. If you don't prepare your ideas well and get them checked by somebody before you share them with your teammates, it may be perceived by those teammates or by the evaluators that you lack analytical skills, which is a fundamental mistake and a reason to be denied by the program. If you don't have the ability to think logically, I wouldn't want to work with you in my Wharton team, and they wouldn't either. The solution is to know your material. I think what I mean by this effectively is this is the advice I'm giving to my clients, and this is what I would do myself if I were going to participate in this activity, would be to choose a topic that I actually know well and that I could discuss comfortably for 45 minutes. Take a position, in other words, that you can support using personal examples from your actual experience. In terms of your logic, pick something that you believe in and be ready to defend it, but also be willing to acknowledge when you have forgot to think of something important. Admit your mistakes. I'll talk a lot more about that. That's fail number 2 in terms of teamwork fail. So for TBD prompt 1, as you know, the question asks you to tell them one key business skill that business leaders must have in order to be successful long term. So one key skill, if I were walking into my Wharton TBD, I would choose storytelling. It's what I do, what I've been doing for 20 years professionally in various capacities. It's something I believe passionately about, and I can share lots of examples. I think it is definitely one key business skill that leaders must have in order to be successful long term. First of all, let me define the term. Storytelling for me is the art or the skill of conveying important information in a way that will engage an audience. So right now, you watching this video are my audience, and I am doing my best to convey important factual information in a way that you can clearly understand and care about and do something with, I think, is another key part of storytelling. Providing information in a way that makes that information useful because the listener to that information or to that message is engaged at more than just an intellectual level. The reason it's a core business skill, well, first of all, in terms of a structure, how I would prepare this, I would define the problem as narrowly as possible. In terms of business leaders needing this communication skill. And I can cite hundreds of examples anonymously of my clients over the years that have struggled. And before that, and my clients are all business leaders, and so I have an unfair advantage, and that's why I would choose this answer. I can really give lots of examples, both in admission situations and after graduation, in terms of actually reaching high executive levels where communicating messages, a failure to communicate messages in an engaging way that's sensible can result in serious business failures, both for the individual and his or her career, and also for the organization itself. The immediate cause, I would talk about why business, I would prepare a lot of thoughts in my mind, and I would list in my preparation reasons why business leaders might lack storytelling skills. They may lack storytelling skills because they never studied them, or because they've been so focused early in their career on developing specialized knowledge and skills in an area that has nothing to do with perhaps human communication. Or there may be incorrect perceptions about whether or not this skill is important, or ways in which this skill can be used on a daily basis. Perhaps someone simply has never prioritized it. I think that becomes a problem, again, according to the question, when someone moves into a senior position. Again, the question is talking about long-term career success. That's the main assumption that I'm using to claim and frame my answer. And I would talk about the effect. I think I would talk about things like, there's so much information available. There's perhaps too much information on the web and everywhere. The world is awash with data. The challenge then becomes making meaning of that data. I think we as humans are overwhelmed with data, and we're craving meaning to the data. And I think also as humans who are highly plugged into information, the reaction can be a bit of cynicism and skepticism. Healthy skepticism is smart, but I think overly kind of cynical views, I think it's a lost opportunity, and there's a lot of problems that aren't being addressed. So I definitely view storytelling in I view storytelling in a wide window, a wide range, but I view the problem of a lack of storytelling in some very narrow and specific areas where storytelling can be a problem. This answer that I just gave is not very good. I myself am not sure I'm ready for my Wharton team-based discussion. I am not invited. You are. So I'm taking a big risk with giving these examples. I hope you realize this. I'm just trying to simply show you how I'm thinking about this process. Hopefully you can do a lot better than I just did. TBD prompt number 2. The most important societal challenge that could be addressed more effectively by the business community today. Look, this one I think everybody's, from what I'm hearing, is even more anxiety producing than the previous one, because it's, people, this one, because Wharton's using this phrase, most important societal challenge. I think this is what's confusing a lot of you. I think a lot of you are confused that most important societal challenge is an absolute, like in the world. So my answer, if you ask me what's the greatest issue facing humanity today, in my mind, I would say climate change, actually, because it's so scary and so unknown and so unprecedented, at least in human history, modern human history. Anyway, we don't know how to deal with a warming planet or, significant changes. We're destroying our home and we don't have another one to go to. This is a big problem. But I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to talk about this at Wharton because I don't have any, I guess I'm fairly educated and I read as much as I can, but I couldn't talk about this intelligently for 45 minutes, so I would never choose this answer for Wharton. For Wharton, I would choose something I also care deeply about, that I actually know about, which is access to quality education. I ran an education nonprofit. I was a middle and high school teacher. I'm still involved in education today. I have a child, and I'm involved in his education. So I would say the biggest problem that business leaders could address is the fact that children, too many children around the world, in the developed and the developing world, cannot access the best education available. There's simply a lack of resources, or at least a perceived lack of resources. The effect of this is inequality, both inequality in education levels, and I think it could be argued, that there's an effect long term over about inequality about income. I think there's lots of studies, longitudinal studies about the relationship between education, especially early childhood education, and long term, ability to participate in an economy and be productive in society and to feel as a member of society, to basically be able to make money in the world and be successful in a career and provide for one's family, etc. How business leaders can help, again, with my own experience running a nonprofit and raising money, I have lots of examples, because I was on the requesting end, begging money, basically we got money from the U.S. government, lots of money from the Clinton administration. We thankfully, thank you, Bill Clinton. We had money from local companies. This was in New Orleans. We had money as well from regional and multinational companies, as well as generous individuals and individual foundations. But in terms of corporate, leaders can provide time and money, mentoring. We had mentor programs where successful adults would teach our students some of the skills that they use every day, visiting real businesses, getting an understanding of what do people do, so that when a 12-year-old starts to say, what I want to be when I grow up, he or she has a realistic image of what those people actually do and the steps that they went through to get to where they are now, so that it becomes much more realistic. Time, money, and also in-kind resources. Businesses often have excess of things, and communities, children, parents often need those things in schools. For example, old computers. Business, Bloomberg or whatever, an investment bank has to have the best and the latest and the fastest. They have 2 years ago's computers, which to them is obsolete. To some school down the street or on the other, somewhere nearby, not too far away, there's somebody that could really use those computers. It's just an example. Businesses can generate goodwill, generate marketing essentially for themselves. Perhaps they can benefit from tax breaks, and also just a feeling of involvement and connection to the community, which is somewhat intangible. Society clearly benefits. Educated citizens, innovative workers, and dynamic communities. That's my answer for the social thing. I could talk about that for 45 minutes easily, and I'll compromise and admit that all kinds of other issues are equally important. I think in the team-based discussion, there's going to be a lot of give and take. But that would be my answer, and that's roughly how I would structure it. Again, too long, need to practice more. I'm going out on a limb by sharing my answers the best I've been able to do them, just again to give you something to compare to, because as I'm finding, and as you're probably noticing, there's not much data out there. So I'm giving you my answers. Please criticize them. They should be criticized, and that would be the point. I would prepare more than I have for this, for my TBD, and I would walk in with confidence that this is what I believe in, and also an open mind and a sense of humor and an attitude of openness to be challenged about my logic. But again, an ability to speak from my own experience and also kind of defend my idea and explain it as well without being defensive. The second skill, the second way to fail is teamwork fail. This relates to how you treat others. If you appear stubborn, inflexible, or argumentative, I think you're going to have a really hard time getting a good evaluation from the people in the Wharton TBD. The reason that people sometimes don't work well in a team, I think, often has to do with an incorrect assumption on their part that if you think you have to win, if you're a debater or you're a competitive athlete and you think that if your image in this is that there's going to be one gold medal winner, a silver and a bronze, this is not the Olympics. This is the team-based activity, so it's not win or lose. Hopefully it's win-win. One of you or more of you, hopefully in the team, hopefully all of you will get in. And it's also possible that none of you will get in. And you certainly won't improve your chances of getting in if you are coming across in a way that's designed to make other people look bad. So the way to change it is basically, as I've already said, go in with an open mind, welcome other people's comments and challenges. If you want to challenge someone else, do so without saying you're wrong. Ask questions about what they're saying. Have you thought about this? What about that? Does your example fit? In my case, um, are businesses really the best people to impact early, childhood education? Isn't that the role of government? Yes, you're right. It's very much the role of government. I'm simply saying that businesses can and should be more involved because governments have limited resources. And also, I think leaving this entirely to the government robs both sides of an opportunity, both the community and the citizens and the students, as well as the business people themselves, of the opportunities to interact. Anyway, I would defend my idea and also acknowledge the point that someone else made. All right, a couple other hints here. 3 more, and this video will end. Vocal fail. A way to fail in terms... So we've talked about logic of what you say, and we've talked about your attitude in terms of how you work with others. Vocal fail is usually you just talk too fast. In my video, I'm excited, passionate, and doing my best to prepare this information, but I've sped up a couple of times in my video. You've probably noticed as soon as I'm aware of it, I try to slow down. The more confident I am in my material, the more easy it is for me to speak clearly and effectively. The same is true for you. Practice is the answer. The other thing that I do all the time is I say, so then, we think this is helpful to fill up the space, the silence. It's not. I was silent just then, and I'm hoping a lot of you watching this video in that moment of silence actually leaned in a little bit, unless I've totally lost you and you've already turned off this video. Silence can be your friend if you use it effectively. It's much better than verbal junk, just all the time. Not easy to fix this, by the way. Slow down is the answer, and practice is the answer. And also, one more hint. This is hard to do in a team-based discussion, but before you open your mouth, articulate or say the idea in your mind before you say it out loud. Okay. The 4th fail is a body language fail. It just means this, I want to tell you something, or pointing, aggressive body language, or perhaps, I think it's less likely because you're going to be really nervous, but some of us, when we get nervous, we shrink. This kind of body language, getting really small. Either one is ineffective because it makes you look insecure. Unconscious, we don't know we're doing this. Practice for your TBD in front of a mirror and notice the frame of the box of the, get one of these little makeup mirrors. If you're a guy, borrow one or buy one. If you're a woman, you may already have one. That's a gendered biased thing. I apologize if that offended you. But anyway, a mirror that sits on a table where you can see your whole face and a bit of your body, and have your little note card with your 3 problem, cause, and effect for your TBD answer, and give your answer and notice. I'm American, I'm Italian American, so I love to use my hands, but too much, too big, and it looks like you're drowning or calling for help, or that you're attacking somebody. So you've got to keep your body language within a reasonable bounds of the frame of a mirror, or in this case. And I break this rule all the time, and you'll get excited. But I'm saying be aware of your body language. A little statistic that I can't exactly cite the sources of, but I've some people say it's as high as 90. I think it's 60 to 70%. But basically, meaning is taken from body language and nonverbal communication. This can be proven anecdotally, or talking the way we talk to a puppy dog, a pet, or a little baby who's 3 months old or 1 month old who doesn't have language ability at all. The way we look when we're talking to them is much more important than what we're saying, because they don't understand what we're saying. Humans, it's the same thing, even for adults who have full language capability. How you look when you talk is important, so be aware of it. All right, the last thing here is This is a failure of perspective where you basically lose sight on what is at stake. Um, you've been invited to a Wharton interview. Maybe you weren't invited to a Harvard interview, or maybe you weren't invited to a Stanford interview, or maybe you, whatever. Maybe you don't have any other option at the moment other than Wharton. Don't let that make you feel desperate, because if you feel desperate, you will look desperate, and no one likes someone who's desperate. It has the opposite effect of what you want. Okay, take a step back and remember you have options. Just a second. If you've been invited to Wharton, it means you could get into some top school at some point. There's always next round, there's always next year. You may not feel that way at the moment, but if you look back on your life 20 years from now, this is one of the important moments in your life. It is not life or death. So talk to a friend or a mentor, someone, a close, trusted family member, or someone who's known you your whole life. Get a little bit of perspective from an older, wiser person about what's at stake here, so that when you walk in the room, feel like you've already been admitted to Harvard, right? And this is just a trophy for you, or you really want to get into both schools and actually you want to compare them, having been admitted and attending the Admit Students Weekend. So hypnotize yourself or convince yourself that this is, play defense a little bit rather than playing aggressive offense. I really need this. It's not attractive, and it's unconsciously something we as humans notice and unconsciously resist and avoid. So go into this process as if you've already been admitted. Try to have fun in the team-based discussion. Go in with an open mind, an open attitude. And the way to have an open mind and an open attitude is to practice. Please let someone listen to your short summary of TBD Prompt 1 and TBD Prompt 2. Share this with someone you respect and trust and get their feedback. You will be very grateful if you go in there having practiced this not only in your head or in your mirror, but also with a live human who's clever and can poke some holes in your logic, so you can anticipate some of the things that'll happen. A couple little small points, and then I'm going to end this video. Thanks for your time and attention. These sound like stupid little common sense things, and maybe they are, but these are things I try to remember every single day, and I always forget. When you're in the Wharton TBD, when you're in a stressful situation, remember to smile once in a while. Not panic all the time like deer in the headlights smile, but once in a while, don't be afraid to not look terribly serious or worried. Again, this relates to your attitude and your inner feelings about the whole situation. And the other one, which I think is absolutely a universal and sounds like common sense, but we forget all the time. Breathe. Don't sigh. But if you feel yourself rushing, performing, speaking in public, whether it's 5 or 6 people around a table, or even in a one-on-one situation, or to an audience of 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000, speaking in public is one of the highest stress-inducing activities known to humanity. The solution is right here in your diaphragm, where your brain needs oxygen. Again, this is like your mother's common sense advice, but I'm just going to point it out. It's the solution for all kinds of the problems that I mentioned up above. So remember to breathe, remember to have fun. Good luck with your Wharton TBD, and thanks again for watching this video. Bye-bye. Welcome. This is Vince, the admissions advisor and consultant, helping you avoid failure at your Wharton interview. The topic of this short video will be how to fail, or maybe how not to fail, your one-on-one interview as part of the new Wharton interview process. I'll be making a series of very short videos dealing with different aspects of this new Wharton interview process. So for the one-on-one interview, from what they have told us so far, first of all, congratulations, you've been invited to Wharton, and now you're trying to figure out how to pass this interview. It's a new way and a new day, and so we're all trying to figure this out. But I'm doing lots of prep right now for my clients. Some of my comprehensive clients who worked with me for their essays and their strategy are getting invited to interview. That's very exciting. And lots of people around the world are contacting me for one-on-one interview training, as well as simulation and practicing of the team-based discussion aspect. So I've tried to synthesize all of my best tips into this series of short videos. I'm calling the series 5 Ways to Fail. It's a negative frame and a negative logic. Obviously, I don't want you to fail. I want you to succeed. I'm just trying to identify, I think, some of the things that we need to be aware of. And absolutely all of these 5 core mistakes are avoidable with practice. That's the purpose of these videos that I'm making, to try to help you avoid these mistakes. So in the one-on-one interview, I think the fundamental way that you could fail is to what I call close the sale. Let me pause for a moment. Close the sale just means convince them of that the person that they observed in the team-based discussion, to confirm some points that are very critical. Closing the sale involves a variety of things. This is what you need to show at the Wharton one-on-one interview, I think. First of all, I think you need to show good judgment and self-awareness. Self-awareness means having a sense of humor about your performance in the team-based discussion, having some takeaways, identifying some things that surprised you, either things that you didn't expect you would say, or things you learned from other people. I think a nice balance of keep some serious comments and some light comments, and showing that you enjoyed the process and that you have a better sense now of what this team-based discussion is designed to do, which is to give you, according to Wharton, some insight into the Wharton team environment. So talk about the process with an honest self-awareness and self-assessment that clarifies for them that A, that you enjoyed the experience, and B, that you learned something from it, and then perhaps talk about some things you wish you could do differently. Again, not with super seriousness, but just if we could do that again, I think I might have done this a little bit differently. It may have turned out differently. From us, keep it light, keep a sense of perspective about the whole thing, but also have something to say. And the second thing that you need to do to really close the sale is to demonstrate good judgment. Judgment comes in the form of updates. What do you want to tell us since you sent us these essays that we read and this application that we liked because we invited you to interview? What have you been doing since you applied? So there should be some exciting updates. They could be professional things. Professional updates can be perhaps a promotion, new people to train, a bigger budget, an expansion, closing an important deal that you were working on, or finishing, having a sense of a milestone or a sense of completion, some stage of something that you were working on back when you were writing the essays and applying to the school. There's been some update, and obviously something positive. There's probably maybe as many or more negative things. Obviously, you're not going to mention those. Keep it up. Keep a positive achievement, something small or big, but have something ready. A personal one, you may or may not have it, but it could be a very personal milestone, an engagement, a wedding, a child, or whatever, something important, or something light. My softball team won the championship, or I whatever, I don't know. I lost 5 pounds. I'm not sure. That's probably too personal. I don't know. Health stuff. I would steer clear of all that. But anyways, again, something personal, maybe a milestone, an achievement, or an activity, something that you were doing at the time that you applied. Again, like whatever, Toastmasters. I did my best performance ever, I think, at my Toastmasters club. Whatever it is, something small, but again, meaningful to you, and have it ready. Practice it and have it ready to share with them. They say that's one of the purposes of the one-to-one interview. And, we have to take them at their word. This is a brand new process. They're giving, I think, a decent amount of information about it. But they're saying it's a casual conversation and it's a chance for you to update them. So you should. All right. The third thing to show is passion. I don't mean passion, like romance. I mean passion meaning knowledge of the school. The easiest way to show this is to ask customized questions. Your interviewer could be a current student, could be a staff member. If it's a staff member, they may be a Wharton graduate, like Ms. Kumar, the director, or they might not be a Wharton graduate. So you've got to customize the questions that you ask to your audience. And this is something you'll find out right away, probably in the TBD, the team-based discussion. Everyone is role-playing the dean or whatever they're trying to be in this team-based thing, a professor-type authority figure, even if they're your peer, actually, as a current student or your future peer. But after the interview, I think the mask comes off and it's very clear who this person is. It's so-and-so in the admissions office, or it's so-and-so current student, second-year volunteer who's been trained to do this kind of interview stuff. Anyway, prepare questions for both types, or actually all three types. I think the hardest kind of person to prepare a question for would be someone who hasn't experienced Wharton as a student at all. Not as an undergrad, not as an MBA, is just a worker in the admissions office. That's really tough, but you've still got to have questions that aren't just narrow fact-based questions, where the answer could be yes or no. Actually, a question that's designed to start a dialogue and sustain the conversation. With a staff member who's kind of an outsider to the Wharton community, who's just an admissions officer, and that's it. There are still good questions to ask. It's not in this video, but on my website, in my Wharton Tips page, there is a link. I have an entire post about good kinds of questions to ask at the interview, and there are some tips about questions to ask to these kind of outsider staff members as well. Okay, the fourth thing that you need to show to close the sale is a sense of commitment. As I have talked about in other videos that I've been making, Wharton is in the top 5 for yield. It's neck and neck with Columbia, depending on the year and the data, but it's around 70, the low 70th percentile for yield, which is 20 percentage points below the leader for yield, which is Harvard. So if Wharton thinks you applied to Harvard and Wharton thinks you're interviewing at Harvard and Wharton, statistically, being a school that understands math, Wharton is going to logically assume you'll go to Harvard over Wharton. Most people do. I've never had a client choose Wharton over Harvard. I've had a client choose MIT over Harvard. I've had a client choose Columbia over Stanford. I've had clients choose MIT over Wharton. I've had clients choose Kellogg over MIT and Wharton. Anyway, the list continues. Never, ever known anyone who turned down Harvard for Wharton. I'm sure there's someone out there. More power to you for making your own choices and going against the grain. I've done that as well, as I've talked about in my other videos. I respect that, but it's unlikely. It's unusual. They don't expect it. So try not to mention Harvard. If they say, where else have you applied? Keep it vague. I've applied to some other top schools, and bring it back to Wharton, why Wharton is your first choice. And you've got to have a sort of a killer logic here, which relates to only or best. Only Wharton has something that you need. And usually that relates to people. And in the case of people, it's usually professors. You could say people relates to the students and the student culture. That's a harder sell. The students 50% turnover every year. You could claim the Wharton student culture is the killer advantage. I guess that logic could work if you're really clever about it, but I think it's going to have more to do with a professor or a unique elective or something in the program offerings that is absolutely unique, or the INSEAD exchange, or some aspect of something that you can do at Wharton, that you can only do at Wharton, that is the best way to prepare for your goals. In this interview, this one-to-one interview, I do not assume they're going to talk about your goals. That's in the essays. In 15 minutes, it's going to be very hard for them to be asking you very typical questions like, why do you want an MBA? And very open questions like, why do you want to go to Wharton? You proved that in the essays sufficiently to be invited to this interview. I assume this is a blind one-on-one interview, meaning it's not document-based like MIT or Harvard where they have the application in front of them. And in 10 to 15 minutes, I just don't think they're going to open that door because that door's been sufficiently closed, if you will. That topic has been covered elsewhere. If they do start asking, why do you want an MBA and why do you want to go to Wharton, it's because they're confused somehow, that you're sending mixed signals or that your message in this 15-minute one-on-one conversation is somehow confusing them because they assume that logic was clear enough that the people that read your essays, which is usually not the person that's doing this one-on-one conversation, felt confident about that story. So you've got to close the sale in terms of, I will come to Wharton if you admit me. It's a simple message. Say it at the right time and in the right way according to the conversation that you're having. Don't throw it in there in an awkward way, but make sure that message is clear to them. If there's any doubt, that should be the last thing you say before you shake hands and say thanks and, get escorted out of the room or whatever. That's a clear message, and you've got to run that through your checklist as the interview is closing and make sure that they really have heard you say those words in some way or another. So, signing off for now. These are 4 of the ways that you could fail, but hopefully will pass the Wharton one-on-one interview, casual conversation aspect of this new Wharton interview style. And these other videos that I'm also going to be showing soon that you can find either on my website or on YouTube. I'll be talking about other aspects of the team-based discussion. All right, that's it for today. Thanks again for watching, and best of luck with your Wharton interviews and with your MBA application process. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome. This is Vince Ritchie, MBA admissions advisor, consultant, and coach. Short video here today correcting a mistake in a previous video relating to the Wharton interview, specifically the Wharton one-on-one interview. I gave what I now realize was bad advice. In that previous video, I said that I don't think Wharton would ask you why you want an MBA in the one-on-one interview, in the one-on-one discussion. I'm realizing that's bad advice because they may ask you anything they want. It's actually not an unusual question to ask in a blind interview where the interviewer only has a resume. It's in fact a very common sense and natural question about why you, the applicant, want an MBA. So it's a fair question. I can't say they will ask it, but I was wrong when I said that I didn't think they will ask it. I don't know what they're going to ask. They can ask anything they want. So it's bad for me to say, it's confusing, I think, and bad advice for me to tell you, oh, don't worry about that. They're not going to ask that. Who am I to know that? I don't know that, in fact. So be ready for anything. Over-prepare. Prepare for the worst-case scenario. In this case, I don't think it's a scary scenario because you have answered why you want an MBA in the essay. So now it's just a matter of turning that essay answer into a short, clear interview answer that may lead to a follow-up discussion about something you said. So I'm going to give you my answers, again, based on my experience because I'm not competing with you. I'm not applying for a Wharton MBA myself. And so this is what I would say if I were interviewed by Wharton in a one-on-one interview. First of all, a question that you should be prepared for is tell me about yourself, which I abbreviate as TMAY, tell me about yourself. This is different from walk me through the resume. Walk me through the resume is a sequential, chronological maybe starting with college or just after college, this is the first job that I took and this is why I took it. I developed certain skills, then I changed my function or my company, or both, and I gained a different set of skills. And, so I've made conscious choices up my career in order to gain certain skills, sort of a stepping stone, if you will. And then as a next follow-up question, why do you want an MBA? And then what do you want to do in the future? This tell me about yourself is quite different. This is more of a more like headlines, or another way to think of it is almost like snapshots, like a very quick photo album. So this is my template or my suggested structure for how to answer tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself implies professionally and personally. So this is my little issue tree here that I made really simply. Tell me about yourself. Professionally, I run a admissions consulting business. I've worked for 10 years in this field. I've helped more than 500 applicants get into the very top graduate and MBA programs around the world. And I really love what I do because I really enjoy helping people. In addition to one-on-one training through my company, which is Vince Prep, I also give lectures and do seminars at various places around Japan, including right here near my office. I give some lectures a couple times a year at the University of Tokyo. My students there are graduate engineers, but it's still the same core skill set. I'm teaching them academic writing and presentation skills as well. Outside of work, I have a family. I love to enjoy time whenever I can, spend time and play around with my 7-year-old son. We love to go to museums. When it's a rainy day and when it's a sunny day, we do fun stuff in the neighborhood, just kicking the soccer ball around or hanging out. It's a lot of fun. It's a great age, and I'm really enjoying being a dad, being a father. Also, I love to play music. I play guitar and bass. Still play around whenever I can. I've been in a bunch of bands over the course of my life. That was a kind of impromptu version of my little decision tree here. I wasn't timing myself. That was probably too long. I could have tightened it up here and there, but I hope you get the idea here that this logic is professionally quick summary with some highlights, and then professionally quick summary. 10, I use some numbers, 10 years, admissions consulting, some numbers, some highlights or some great results, and then some achievement in some way that makes it catchy. And then personally, I talked about my son and music and other stuff. This is not the end of the conversation. This is really actually the start of the conversation. So this is not a long speech. This is rather a quick presentation of hopefully a bunch of interesting things that will catch the attention of the person you're talking to, who will then hopefully ask follow-up questions about any one of the items that you've just laid out in very brief sketch. This is a text version of what I just said. I'll say it again to see, actually I will time it this time. Professionally, I run a highly successful admissions consultancy. Since 2002, I've helped more than 500 professionals around the world gain admission to top MBA and graduate school programs. I also teach academic writing and presentation skills to graduate engineering students at the University of Tokyo. I think the secret to my success comes from my past experience in the performing arts. My counseling style is rooted in storytelling methods that I learned as an improviser at Stanford University and also as a professional Shakespearean actor. Outside of work, I enjoy playing soccer and bass guitar with my 7-year-old son. So that was a minute. I was actually under a minute. And let me just fix this. I do. I use dictation software. I use voice recognition to save time and to save my hands from overwork and keyboard occupational hazard. And I did this in voice recognition. It didn't quite catch my words. Around the world gain admission to. Thanks for putting up with this. I'm just making this video as quickly as I can. Find a professional in the world, gain admission to, yeah. Cool. Anyway, that's just one way you can't answer it that way. That's how I would answer it. I'm giving away these answers because I'm pretty sure you're not going to copy them, because I don't think anyone else has my particular combination of stuff here. But this is the real takeaway, hopefully, is this sort of decision tree or issue tree, logic tree kind of a structure for tell me about yourself. So do this, practice this, test this out on friends and people who know you well. Is this attractive? Is this interesting? Are these the things I should be mentioning? Is this catchy? You know, and then give it a shot. Have fun with it. Okay, now let's move on here to the final thing in this video, which is my sample answer again to why you need an MBA. I don't really have a decision tree or shortcut for this one, or a way to organize your answer. I'm just going to give you my answer. So if they say why you want an MBA, you kind of do need to briefly mention your goal first. And so this is how I would answer this question. Why do you need an MBA? I want to bring admission counseling to the masses. I believe that everyone should be able to improve their critical thinking and storytelling skills, regardless of their income. I plan to build a role-playing game where MBA and graduate school candidates can match their skills to actual school criteria and admissions standards set by the top schools. I already, from my experience, I understand the market, and I know how to I understand the content, or I understand the logic of admissions advising. I know that well. But I don't know much about managing finances or arranging licensing, and also how to scale a global operation. I envision this thing to be big. I have some questions about the funding model. I have a lot of clarity on some aspects, and I have a lot of questions in other aspects. And I definitely feel that a Wharton MBA is the best way to develop my business model while building journal management and finance skills that I'll need to run this operation and start this social venture that I have in mind. Wharton's the best place for me because I can study with Professor Ian McMillan in the entrepreneurial program, and I can access unique resources like the Wharton Social Venture Fund. All right, that's my answer. I wasn't timing that one. I could tighten it up a lot. It's probably too long. I might not mention the professor's name or the Wharton Social Venture Fund unless they asked me. But anyway, my point here is that I think you definitely need to say briefly about your goal. Why do you want an MBA? Well, I want to do something. Then you need to say what you already know how to do. In my case, I already know the content, or I know the market, but I don't know about general management and finance, particularly licensing and funding and scaling and operations and stuff that I've just never done. Every business I've ever done has been very small scale, very one-on-one. And for this operation to work, it needs to be big because it's going to be a different funding model. It's not going to be a per hour, high hourly rate type of consulting model. I really want to open this method and process up. Anyway, I'm talking too much about a fictitious situation. I'm not competing with you again. I'm not applying for MBA. If I ever got an MBA, this would be the reason I would get an MBA. So it's an honest answer in that sense, but it's not a real answer in that I'm not applying to Wharton. Okay, that's it for now. I just wanted to put that out there again to summarize. The reason I'm making this video is you should be prepared to, in fact, talk about why you need an MBA. They might ask it, they might not. But my previous video, I think, overstated when I said, "Oh, they're not going to ask that." How do I know, right? You should be prepared for anything, over-prepared for anything, for any scenario. And also, I think this, tell me about yourself. I wanted to share this. I've blogged about this or written about this before, but I've never actually included this kind of tree thingy, and I certainly haven't talked about it in a video yet. So that's it. Good luck with your Wharton interview. Good luck with all of your interviews. I think either of these answers that I outlined today could be useful for almost any school you're applying to. So best of luck, and thanks again for watching. All right, good luck to you. Take care. Bye-bye.